All right, welcome back. Different video today. Skin tones. How do you paint them? I see a lot of times when I'm watching my students draw and paint, they try really hard, but it doesn't always look good. So I'm gonna try to show you how to make it really pop and look nice when you wanna paint a person. They sell actual skin tones right out of the bottle. You can get this in acrylic. I'm using oils today because I happen to have all the colors fully stocked, but you can get all of this in acrylic, which is safer, and you just need water to clean up. And you will want to use, though, if you're buying the better quality paints by Winsor & Newton or Gamblin, you're going to want to buy a medium that helps to slow down the acrylic paint from drying. So that's the only thing you're going to need to maybe look into doing if you want to do this right. But let's start. This is probably, for starters, a good way to begin. I'm just going to put it right onto here so you can see what it looks like. That is what flesh tone paint looks like. It's not bad, but there's no real way to work with it like at a really professional level. When you try to paint on with it, I'm just going to use a little bit of my own solvent here, which is just a safe, I use a citrus solvent actually. When you paint the skin tone on, it doesn't look bad. I mean, it looks like skin. At least for mine, it kind of looks kind of close, a little too salmony, but it's not bad. Here's what I see kids do all the time. They'll take white, okay? For example, I always use titanium white, okay? And there's also, for the black, ivory black. I see kids all the time just try to lighten up the skin tone with white. And doesn't look bad actually. Could be a lot better, but there's not much to it, and it doesn't look realistic. When they want to darken up areas and shadow it up, they'll take the black and they will just darken it up, and then it looks completely black. So then you put a little more of that on, and then what happens is you get this gray, muddy looking mess. And it's okay. I mean, I've seen lots of paintings done this way with just using a very basic monochrome style with this. It's not good though for really capturing what skin looks like. Skin is blue, skin is green, skin is yellow, skin is red. It's orange, it's everything. You can, if you really look closely at your skin, you can see all different sorts of colors existing within them. Whether you're looking specifically, at like the veins going through you, you can find the blues there. But it's not just there. You can find greens throughout your skin. You can find the shadows, there are blues. So here's what I want to show you today is how to really make skin pop. And this is all about experimentation for you. You're going to need to play around with ratios and seeing how much of each type you want to use. Here's my magic 3-color set that I like to use. I've learned it from watching other people make recommendations, suggestions, and this is the trio that I stick with. I use Alizarin Crimson. You can barely read it because I use it quite heavily. I use Cadmium Yellow Light, and here is the little secret piece de resistance. I use a Pthalo Green, which sometimes goes by, I believe, Phthalate Cyanide Green in yellow shade. Don't get the blue, get the yellow shade, because even though we have blues in the shadows of our skin, if you look closely and a little abstractly, you want to lean toward yellow because that will be closer to real skin tone. So here's what I want to show you. I'm going to take these colors. I'm going to start with the Alizarin Crimson, and I'm going to put it right onto here. Okay. I'm just going to work, I'm going to use the paper, which this is actually oil painting paper. I'm going to use this as my canvas today. So I'm going to put some of this on here, okay, and I'm going to put the cadmium yellow light on there, okay, so you can see what it looks like just as its own. And then here is, I love this color, the Pthalo Green, which looks extremely dark to start, but if you actually spread it out a bit, you'll see some really wild green coming out of the edges there. Okay, now each of these, if you add a little white to it, you can see how it changes, especially with the green. You can see its real color emerge a bit more. The same goes for the Alizarin Crimson. you can see more of a pink color emerge. And for the yellow, not much will change, but there it is. Okay, now those three colors will blend into awesome looking skin tone. I'm going to demonstrate that, and I'm going to probably hopefully try to put up on the screen what the ratios are that I'm using and do a couple different examples so you can see how it will look like this but better. Okay, so the first thing you want to start with is the yellow. I'm going to put a generous amount there. I'm going to also put an equal amount of the crimson on. Okay, so equal parts of the cadmium yellow light and equal parts with the alizarin crimson. And then I'm going to take what would probably be about half of that amount in the phthalo green yellow shade. And I'm going to mix that up. You can see what colors emerge out of here in a minute. Right now it's gonna really, the crimson really is holding on strong, but you can see a little bit of orange blending out from the yellow. And what I'm gonna do is add the white so that you can see how this changes as you add more white to it. And right off the bat, I have something very close. If you look carefully at some of the things emerging here, you have something very close to the skin tone right off the bat. And that's 1 part alizarin crimson, 1 part of the cadmium yellow light, and a half a part of the phthalo green yellow shade. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now from here, honestly, what I usually do if I'm painting a portrait, I take this big glob that I have on my palette knife and I will put that somewhere else and I will start adding other colors to it so as to not waste this. I might not need all this paint for this particular shade of skin. I might just take this and add more yellow to it, or I might add more of the phthalo green to it to create more color with it, but I don't want to do that now because I want to teach you a little bit about how the ratios can really change things up. So now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take 1 part of the yellow, and I'm only going to take about half of the crimson for this. It's going to be a very yellow heavy piece. And I'm just going to do that to start without even using any of the phthalo green. Okay, and then I'm going to add the white. Let me get this extra piece off there. Part of me hates wasting the paint, but I want to show you how this looks. And then when I add the white to it, you can see something a lot more orange in tone, but it's definitely a lot different. This has more of a pink look to it. This has more of an orangey color to it. Actually, I think that one might match my skin a little more. If I were to want to match my skin up, I definitely add a little more yellow to it. And this is where I start to play around with things. And I'm going to show you, this gets a little off the ratio, but what I can do is add a little more yellow to it to change things up a bit as I please. And then I get something a little different than what I had before. And I can add more white to it. You'll notice I'm not adding any black. Adding black just grays everything out. If you've been using white and then you add black to it, you ruin it. This is what it looks like. If you add a little black, all of a sudden, first of all, the black takes over everything else, but it overpowers it. So if you really want to bring things darker without destroying the color, you can actually use burnt umber. Burnt umber is an awesome brown. It's actually what you'll see a lot of people start painting with as an underpainting. Well, they'll sketch out. I like to sketch out with paint. Sometimes I'll sketch out with pencil, but sometimes I just want to sketch out with paint. And I'll add my burnt umber with a lot of solvent to it to kind of make it almost like watercolor to start out. That dries super quick. And it actually plays around with the color nicely. You can actually change quite a bit. That's what burnt umber looks like just directly applied, very close to the black at first until you add and mix in the color a bit. Let me take this here so it's a little bit better represented. And you can see how you don't lose the color like you do with the black. It keeps a lot of it. Okay, now let me try something with this since I didn't use at all any of the phthalo green on that one. You can see that's obviously blended from here, but this is the true color there. Let's try using a full part of the phthalo green. Let's use a full part of the yellow. And let's just use a half of the crimson. So we're going to create something really different looking on this one. Even though I only used half of a crimson, you can see though that the red is really taking hold strong on that. Let me add some white so you can see some of the color emerge. And you can see how there's still, like, I didn't mix it perfectly. You can still see some green in there. To be honest with you, that's a good thing. I love to paint in a way where I can see some of the basic colors still showing through. So I will gladly swipe with my brush a little bit of this. If I want to get something cool and in the shadows, I can add a little bit of that green over top, especially with oil paint, or if you're using a good medium with acrylic paint, you can make this work nicely. You can see though that it's not looking much different than anything else. If that happens, if you're not noticing much of a change in the color, even when you're changing up the ratios, you can add more white to really show up what's really going on there. Too much though ruins it, which I just kind of did a little bit there. But it is needed. Sometimes you just need to add more white to it to show its color. For example, down here, if I add more white, you can see more of that pink show through. Personally, what I like to do though is I'd rather add yellow and go in that direction than anything else. So if I'm not seeing its color, I usually bring the yellow and it adds a little more to it. And the green, and then you can see this actually becomes a really cool way to shadow. Take a little more, I'll just keep playing over it, a little more of the red, and that's about what we were looking for before. This is a lot different obviously than the bright yellow there, and then the pink salmony color that we started with. All these are different ways to paint with the flesh. You can go with a lot more burnt umber if you want to create more of a brown look without going in a salmony color direction or a yellow color direction with this. But again, if you paint in layers, you can make this happen very quickly and easily. You can start with a brown, and if you use a very thin amount of these other colors, the brown will show through, as long as you don't put on giant thick globs. If I were to take, for example, this giant glob here of the flesh tone and just put it just straight over this, the yellow's gone. The yellow just disappears. It gets destroyed by putting a really thick layer of paint over it. Now the entire top section is gone there. But if you paint thinly, you can still show through some of those colors. So if you're not happy with the way it looks, you can paint in layers and build things up a bit to see the different tones, see a little more depth to the skin, and the warmth that hopefully shows from the inside out. We're using warm colors here, or we try to, but yeah, that's how the color builds up. I'm hoping that helps a little bit, just to encourage you to try. You can see, I know it's a little bit of a mess, but that's the point. That's how I actually paint. I will take a very thin brush, okay, like this guy here. It's a flat brush. It's a number 2, if you can see that. Maybe, maybe not. And I will take a little bit of something from here, and you can see when I paint with it, you can see some of the pink, you can see some of the green. I promise you that under a better lens camera, you can see a lot more color popping through. You can take some of the salmon there. Let me grab some of the actual more yellow that I was working with there before I destroyed and obliterated it with the black. And I'll directly add yellow to get it pop out, since that black is kind of in my way there. But the point is, this is a lot more, this gives you a lot more variety, and a lot more possibilities than just using the skin tone, the flesh tint that they offer as a choice. So I'm hoping that encourages you to try a little bit, play around with it a little bit, and see what colors you can create using a yellow, a red, and I would choose a green. I mean, you could go with blue, but you're gonna need just the smallest bit of blue. You're gonna wanna prefer a green to add a little different dimension to it. So I hope that helps. I hope that's not a waste of your time. And hopefully you go out and paint with acrylics and maybe oil if you're old enough to do it safely and know how to, do it safely with aeration too, because you have to be careful with the fumes. But I hope that helps you guys, and good luck.